It has been said that the three most important words in relationships are communication, communication, and communication. We cannot overemphasize the importance of good communication in building relationships, especially the marriage relationship. If the marriage relationship is between a man and woman and is bound by covenant agreement to bless or to bring joy to one another, communication has to be the foundation of that. And it has to be the communication based upon the humility that we talked about in our last session. And this is the key idea for this entire presentation. Communication has not taken place until the listener understands the meaning of what the speaker says. And this goes both ways. When you get to an age such as mine, and the hearing is not what it used to be, my wife and I can have some very interesting conversations over what we thought we heard or not hearing it at all, only hearing partial of it. Some of them are frustrating, some of them are very humorous. But we have to continually remember that communication has not taken place until both people have understood what has said. It's not enough to say, well, I told you. No, communication has not taken place until the person understands what you told them. And in communication, we must follow the directives of Scripture, for Paul says in Colossians 4:6, let your conversation always be full of grace, seasoned with salt, so that you may know how to answer everyone. Notice that comment, full of grace. The love that sent Christ to the cross, the love that drew you and I in, that's what grace is. And let our conversation be full of our love for one another, our understanding for one another, seasoned with salt to bring out the best in what communication is. The Apostle Peter says that we are to speak with gentleness and respect. Oh, if we would only remember those two words when it comes to talking to one another in a marriage relationship. Paul writes to the Ephesians, and he tells us to speak the truth in love, not speak the truth in criticism, not speak the truth in nagging, but speak the truth in love. So let's talk about communication. Author John Powell wrote a wonderful book called The Art of Communication, which unfortunately is now out of print. But let me share with you some of what he had to say. He talked about levels of communication, where relationships go to different levels based upon what we're willing to communicate as we greet one another and as we talk, and maybe hopefully our talk goes deeper and deeper. But all communication begins with what we call memorized or cultural greetings or responses. This is simply learning how to say good morning, hello, how are you, good night, just general greetings that we see each other every day in passing, and we just say hello, how are you? The second level, when we have become comfortable with just the beginning, is the reporting of facts. And this is when we say, well, how's your family? How did you sleep last night? What's your son doing now? And questions similar to this. Are you having a good day? What do you think about the weather? It's communicating in a way that you don't expect an answer. And if there is an answer, it requires no self-revelation into who you are and what you're really thinking. And so we begin with just general greetings. As a relationship grows, we might just begin these simple questions that everybody asks everybody during the day. Then we come to a level 3, is where we feel more comfortable with the person and we're able to express our thoughts to people. This is the sharing of ideas or judgment in a safe environment. That means we know and trust the person to whom we're talking to without the expectation of a response other than agreement. What do you think about those Cubs? The Cubs are bums. What do you think about the latest football game? What do you think about the weather? What do you think about our president or something like that, where we make maybe a judgment or just expressing our thoughts about it, but we're hoping that it goes no further than that. Men like to do this with sports, with politics, with simple opinions and so forth. Women talk a lot about children, garden, other relationships with women, everything that can be expressed in a thought without any fear of it coming back and looking askance at who you are and what you're thinking. When we're comfortable with expressing our thoughts, then we might get to the place where we are willing to share our emotions and how we're really feeling. And this goes beyond reporting the facts or expressing opinions to how those facts and opinions are affecting my life and how they are making me feel uneasy or happy or confused. We're beginning to open ourselves up a little bit to where people can see inside us. And then this moves to what we call complete exposure. This is when we get to an area in a relationship where we feel that it's safe to share my life, my feelings, my thoughts. Nothing is kept from you. There is no secrets. This is who I am. Now, hopefully, in a marriage relationship, we will grow beyond the reporting of facts and expressing of thoughts. And we will come to the place to where we are willing to share with our spouse what it is that we're feeling. Most marriage relationships stop at level 3, where they just share their thoughts and they want it to stop there. They don't want you to respond back, and they don't want to reveal who they are because they're not safe with you. And we have got to open up and allow them to feel safe in sharing with us, and then especially sharing emotions other than getting angry, which usually is the most common emotion shared in marriage communication. But we've got to come to where we're sharing our emotions. This really hurts me. This is causing me to be confused. I need to have your input because I don't know which direction to go. Or this is something that just really makes me joyful. And what's happening now is just a wonder, to where we can begin to share our emotions and then to go from there to this complete exposure of this is who I am. There is nothing hidden in our relationship. So these are the 5 levels of communication. Hopefully you as a couple will grow all the way down to level 5. But there's 4 barriers to good communication. The first barrier is reacting. Rather than thinking through, rather than listening, rather than getting clarification, we just react. And instead of confession or apology or exploring further, we just get angry. Instead of understanding what's behind what was being said and accepting the thoughts and feelings of the other person, we're ready to defend ourselves or to attack them or to cast blame somewhere else. Just total reaction. or we transfer our reactions to a third party. This is when we say, well, my wife and I got in an argument and I went out and kicked the dog. Or you get angry with the children, or in some other way that we transfer our feelings to a third person. This is a tremendous barrier to good communication, just reacting instead of stopping to listen. The second one is similar to that, but it's blaming. Now, this is what we talked about, is the deception behind the shield of deception. The first one was, I am not the problem. And so we begin to try to point to where the problem is. And normally we're pointing right back at the other person. Another barrier to good communication is excusing. Oh, this is just the way I am. You have to understand. You have to just take me the way that I am. Yeah. Or we say, I didn't have a choice in the matter. But it's when problems come up in communication and we begin to just cast them off, excuse them, rather than going into the communication and trying to understand and to try to bring complete agreement in the situation. And then the fourth one that blockades good communication is inattention. Cell phones and television, where we try to communicate with people and they're more interested in what's happening on the telephone. They've got their cell phone up and they're going through YouTube or TikTok or watching the ball game scores or whatever it might be. They have the television on and they keep glancing at the television while you're trying to talk. This is a tremendous barrier to communication. And we've got to break through. We've got to come and talk about this and express our feelings about it and understand where the other person is. Once again, we come back to Colossians. Let your conversation always be full of grace, seasoned with salt, that you may know how to answer everyone. It only comes when you are willing to communicate. So here's some helpful hints. Eye contact. Look at one another and try to see facial expressions. Try to see body movement. And eye contact lets the person know that you are interested in them and you want to hear what they have to say. Another one is remarks, sounds or gestures that makes the other person know that you're hearing. Things like, okay, what I hear you saying is, or maybe, can you clarify that a little bit more? Help me understand. But all these remarks, sounds, gestures, lets them know you're listening and you care about what's being said. The third help for good communication are these questions. Questions that continue the listening. Okay, let's take this a little bit further. Let's try to get a better understanding. Is there anything that I can do to help? Let them know that you want to hear, you want to understand. And then finally, in communication, remember we said communication isn't complete until both sides understand, and that is a restatement. Okay, in our conversation, this is what I heard you say. Am I right? Is there anything that needs to be clarified? Blessed communication. Communication has not taken place until both parties understand. Communication can be the most beautiful aspect of a marriage relationship, but communication takes work. And if we are committed to blessing our partner, we will do the work that it takes for good communication.